一緒の見に広めろ。
Thank you, Chairperson. Parents are largely responsible for their children's delinquency. Therefore, they have reciprocally the right to choose to face the legal consequences as well. That is why we proposed the motion before the House today. I'm going to talk about two arguments from Prime Minister. Firstly, why parents have a right to bear legal consequences if they're willing to take responsibility. Secondly, why our model rather enhance victims' protections and compensation. Before moving on to 2 points, I would like to explain our model. Firstly, children means underage individuals. Secondly, allow means we allow parents to take this kind of option when they explicitly show their willingness and consent. Number 3, this motion specifically is about fraction. That is to say, parents do not take all the punishments. Some part of the punishment is taken by parents if they're willing to take. So the extent of fraction is determined by the court system in existing mechanism. Let's say when the children are likely to receive 10 years punishment, maybe parents are presumably able to take 2 or 3 years kind of punishment. And that's the mechanism we would like to defend on our side of the house. So let's move on to the first arguments about why parents have a right to bear legal consequences as a legal entity. 3 reasons for that. Number 1, we acknowledge that parents are responsible for crimes committed by their children in many circumstances. Oftentimes, children's personality is disproportionately shaped by parenting or social factors inside the family. This is exactly why, already in the status quo, under the civil law system, the parents make financial compensation for the children's delinquency. For example, when the children break the window or they commit violence against their classmates, already in the status quo, parents make financial compensation. The legal justice system acknowledges that the parents are legally responsible and liable for the consequences that their children actually generate to society. No, thank you. What we would like to emphasize is under specific context of criminal law rather than civil law system, when parents are facing social sanction, media bashing, a lot of criticism from society, the parents are oftentimes a receiver of the social consequences of their children's delinquency. Therefore, reciprocally, parents have a right to choose to determine what to do with the effects, how to defend their family's reputation and honor, and how to take the responsibility. And this is a principle of reciprocity that we would like to emphasize from this side of the house. Second reason is nature of parental right. The principle here is that parents are authorized entity to make proxy decision on behalf of children in many circumstances. They are allowed to choose religion for their children. They are allowed to make a medical judgment on behalf of children. And the rationale behind this principle is that the reason why parental right is given to parents is because government assumes that parents have the ability to best represent the interests of the children and direct growth of their children in the best way. So let's apply this principle in the context of a criminal justice system. In this specific scenario and context, when parents think that bearing punishment as a part of a parental activity foster rehabilitation and reduce the damages to victims, and the cause of the crime is not personality but their parenting. When parents believe that kind of situation and their decision to direct better social consequences as well as rehabilitation of the children should be respected as a legal proxy decision, and that is why this kind of judgment is necessary and legitimized. No, thank you, I will take it later. Thirdly, why choice, not force? We would like to allow parents to take this kind of option, but not force all parents to do so. Why? Because when the parents are willing to take responsibility, the rehabilitation is more likely to be successful, more likely to be effective. So let me explain the mechanism of rehabilitation when the parents are willing to take responsibility. What happens is that in the context of this debate is that parents take incident into account very seriously and regulate their parenting. Therefore, they are more likely to aggressively engage with NGO activity or volunteer activity, or they are more likely to take their children into these kind of social activities afterwards, such as community building or writing letter to victim's family. And for example, in the case of Tsutomu Miyazaki in 1980s, the parents of the criminal actually published a book about how they regulated the incident. This kind of rehabilitation activity is more likely to be accelerated when the parents are willing to take responsibility and impose that sense of guilt upon their children as well. From the children's perspective, what children experience is that they see their parents suffered exactly the same consequences. This experiences or catharsis of the same suffering as familiarizing this context exacerbates the sense of guilt and internal mindset of the regret for children's perspective as well. No, thank you. At least these children are less likely to commit crimes again in the future. We are able to effectively reduce recidivism or second offense rate. Moreover, in a longer term, and this is a strong deterrence for underage. If they commit crimes, their parents might suffer in exactly the same punishment or similarly punishment as the legal consequences. This kind of a social narrative disincentivize potential underage to commit crimes again in the first place. And this is a wide mechanism of rehabilitation. It's accelerated under our model. Go.
As a logic of rehabilitation is applicable for any types of crime. Do you support that the criminal do not want to take rehabilitation? Do you support it?
No, that's why the motion is specifically about fraction. We believe both children and parents are responsible. When parents are able and willing to take the responsibility, there's no problem of allowing parents to make that option. That is why motion is specifically about choice, but not the coercion. You need to understand the burden of proof in this debate. Moving on to the final argumentation. Why our model rather enhance victims' protection? Oftentimes, victims' family acknowledge that the parents are responsible for their children's delinquency. Children are not perfectly responsible for the consequences of their crimes. Victims' family also acknowledge that. But in the status quo, parents face no legal consequence. Parents face no punishment at all. Under our model, some parents take the responsibility. So the victim's family acknowledge that the family of perpetrator consider the incident seriously. They are willing to take responsibility and regret what they did, right? So this kind of attitude to engage with the rehabilitation process accelerates victims' healing and victims' emotional satisfaction. We don't believe that all parents will take this kind of option, but in some cases, parents are willing to take their children into rehabilitation program more aggressively. This kind of attitude at least reduces the victim's anger, ladies and gentlemen, and this kind of mechanism is particularly important in a context in which parents face no legal consequence in the status quo, and that is why we propose. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. Now I call for leader of operations within 7 minutes period.